And welcome back, everyone, to another trip down the road to the apocalypse, where we track the development log here for the Deadlinger. So I am on the Deadlinger website. Let's click on the roadmap. So we have unbelievably covered a lot of material here in the Survivor path, Survivor gameplay. And believe it or not, we're almost to the end. We've been doing this for a long time, and we're almost there to move on to something else. But it's interesting because it doesn't really matter what category it's in. It's just everything is so interesting what they have planned. Just so frustrating to still see it in the early development. Like, I'm impatient. So I'm like, come on with the more builds. So yesterday we talked about the Survivor trials and rewards, which would be things, like achievements. But as you unlock achievements, it said that it would give you unlock perks, which is what's next. I guess I probably could have wrapped that into yesterday's. But anyway, Survivor perks and customizing your play style. So as your survivors progress, achieving specific goals and challenges, they will gain equipable perks that give them a small bonus in one area with a maximum of 3 perks. The perks will be balanced as such that no survivor's perks will be inherently better, but simply evolve and refine their playstyle into where they're most comfortable. We will elaborate on this system as it is implemented. Survivors will remain evenly suited for survival and competition, regardless of this planned perk system. Which, just reading that, see, I don't have a problem. If somebody plays and survives and can develop their person to where they have a whole lot of equipable perks, I would not be surprised if that person was more survivable, more suited to competition or whatever you call it, because they earned it. I'm not saying what they have is bad. It's just I don't have a problem either with somebody having a bunch of perks. So they're saying you're going to have 3 perks. So, whatever. And that's what's going to help keep them kind of balanced, is if everybody's only allowed 3 perks. Because, in my original imagining of things, I was almost thinking of like a skill tree. And so just as you maybe leveled up your person, you would unlock these different bonuses. Now, I've seen a little bit of Nether. I haven't played Nether, but Nether has a development system. So as your person stays alive longer, you get more experience, you go down a tree and unlock stuff. I've seen it with War Z. War Z has a skill tree system. But the thing, though, with like War Z is it's a persistent growth. So even if your person dies, when you come back, you haven't lost any of those things that you developed, or at least I hadn't. I've died lots of times, and the couple points I put in are still there in the things I developed. So with the Deadlinger, the 3 perks and all that is great, but again, I think it's going to be dependent on, even though, like they call it, permanent death, permadeath, you lose your items and stuff. But how is that going to affect these perks and things that you unlock? That's one way that you can keep it even as well, is just you lose all of these abilities that you've earned on death. That way, it's going to be real hard for anybody to really unlock and maintain every single potential perk or item, because every time you die, you lose it. So if you also couple that with a limit of 3, well, there's definitely not going to be any person who's overpowered. And then we have to see what kind of perks that these are. What are they talking about? Like yesterday when we talked about the rewards. So if you killed 1,000 zombies, is that going to give you like a bonus when attacking zombies, or just make you better in combat in general? And then would that be one of the 3 perks that you unlock? But as soon as you die, boom, there goes all that 1,000 zombies for that one character, that one perk. It's all gone. And as you've seen, it's so easy to die. Now, I'm not talking about my poor playing skills. I go and I fight stuff that I should not be messing with. I love fighting up close, and I'm always dying. But you've also seen that I've died just simply by popping into the world to start up my game, and I fall to my death. There's a lot of bugs. So I would think in the beginning at least, the perk system, in order for us to really test it out, is going to have to be persistent across deaths. So even though, you might come up with like a permadeath system, there's going to have to be an option at some point where those perks carry through, kind of like the equipment does currently. You know, right now, when you die, your equipment carries over with you, but I could see an option where when you die, yes, your equipment gets left on your corpse somewhere out in the world and you got to go find it if you want, but then all of your perks and things that you've earned still stay with your character. So that way you're not quite punished or penalized for playing. I mean, I understand the game is an alpha, but when I was beta testing Vanguard Saga of Heroes years ago, even though that was in a beta test, it felt like you were being punished because you died from bugs all the time and you lost a lot of progress and equipment. And even when the game finally launched in the early stages, you were still dying from some of the same exact bugs that you experienced in beta. And then it was like, oh great, I'm paying for the privilege of dying. Well, this game is in alpha, but I would say just to help ease that transition from alpha to beta to a final release is don't strip all the perks and rewards that your person earns until you have a lot of those killing character bugs taken out of the game. But with that being said, I know that's kind of long and ranty on that, but the only reason why we spend any time talking on this, the system is 10%, and so it's impossible to gauge where they're going, what kind of perks that they're going to have, how that will work exactly. And the thing with the perks, though, is going to be balancing, balance, because what they're talking about is making sure everyone remains evenly suited. So regardless of what perk you put into its slot, they don't want anyone to have that flavor of the month build. And I see this all the time. You look at games like Rift. Rift, in essence, kind of has a perk system with 3. Your character at one time can have 3 of those souls equipped, and then each soul has a development branch. So in a way, it's really hard for 2 people to come up with the same character. But you go out onto the internet and you're going to find all these websites that have these soul calculator builds, and there really are like flavors of the month. How am I going to develop this tree? And then they come through and they make balance changes and they rearrange, points and bonuses and things give. And then people spend another week or 2 trying to figure out that perfect build. And then you still end up with folks playing the exact same characters because it's the flavor of the month build. That happens in a lot of games that have like the skill trees. How do I make that perfect build? Even though it doesn't quite have as complicated that soul system of like Rift, but the fact that you have certain paths that you can put development points into, and you don't have enough points to max all those branches out, people try and come up with the perfect build. So with only 3 perks here, I think it would be really hard to say, hey, this is the perfect build and everybody will have the same perks. It's really going to come down to your play style. Of all those perks available, which 3 are going to matter most to you? And if you play in like a co-op system, depending on the perks, you could get a good balance of folks. So you won't really have to rely on that build of the month. I'm just guessing, but it'd be nice if when those perks come, you might have someone who's better at healing. See, right now we don't have healing in the game. Your character automatically heals, but at some point I could see them adding in things like the bandages and medicine. And if you got one of those person who specializes in the perk of healing, then they would be better at doing the application of these different medical orientated tasks. Maybe they can remove infection. Then that would let somebody focus on perks of, say, like I was going to say scavenging, but it's really hard to say how that would work because everybody can pretty much see what's in the world. I don't know if they would have one where somebody can find hidden items, maybe, but then you could, really kind of come up with like a group of survivors that are specialized to a task, because 3 perks really isn't a whole lot. But if you want to have a nice successful group, then you could have one character focus on this set of perks, another character focus on this set of perks. What's going to be hampered is folks that play solo. With only 3 perks, you're not going to be able to really kind of focus and broaden out and have all those things at once, unless you can swap them in and out. Now it says they're equipable, but it's hard to say if that means once it's equipped, can you take it out? I've unlocked this perk, because then with a solo person, then you could go ahead and maybe be that jack of all trades. So once you need to perform those medical tasks on yourself, you just open up your perk slot and you just, say unequip this perk and put my medical perk in, maybe. And so even that's really hard to say how that's going to happen. But again, it's 10%. 10% in the roadmap here. Not a whole lot of information has been given on it beyond that. But that's just some things that I see with it, Balancing is going to happen quite a bit. Only 3, so that means you're really going to have to focus on how you want to specialize your character. And then some of that will also be based on if those are hot swappable. Can I pull those out when I need it? Will there be any kind of penalty if I unequip a perk and put another perk in? Are those perks going to be carried across death? If you play on a permadeath, is all of that progress going to be wiped out from your character? So we'll just have to wait and see down the road how it's coming. But anyway, thanks again for listening to me ramble on about this. Tomorrow looks like we'll take a look at progression and leveling, which really kind of goes hand in hand almost with like the perks and stuff. Might as well cover it right this minute then, because it's real similar. So it says we have a system designed out to allow survivors to increase their prowess in the apocalypse as they survive and level up. This system is mostly under wraps, but will focus primarily on cosmetic or feel-good bonuses, and will avoid giving higher-level survivors any significant power over lower-level survivors. Survivors will remain evenly suited for survival and competition, regardless of this planned leveling system. So really hard to say what they mean by feel-good. So there will be leveling, you will have some perks, so you can customize how your character performs in certain situations. But since they say it's in wraps, pretty much what that means is they've wrote it on paper, and they said, yeah, let's throw this in at some point. When you look at games like DayZ, DayZ doesn't have necessarily that kind of a skill system. They have crafting and things that your character can do, but there's not a leveling up system per se, so everybody really is kind of evenly suited, and the difference is in what kind of gear that you find. Now with Nether, they do have a leveling system, but from what I've seen, when you die, you lose all that progress. War Z has a progress system, and you get to keep those levels and things that you've unlocked throughout your deaths. So it's really going to be difficult to see what exactly they mean by feel-good bonuses that you unlock. And once again, it's going to be really dependent on maybe server settings. Can you keep these things on death? Are they permanently erased on a permadeath? I'm just really curious what they mean by feel-good bonuses. So then it's like, well, if it's just kind of a cosmetic thing, is it even worth putting time into developing a character and then worrying about if they die or not? So anyway, 10%, we'll see how that comes down the road. I really don't anticipate seeing much on that until a lot further down the road. These sound like they might be things more towards beta than actually right as the early part of alpha. I think they still have a lot of bug fixing to do first before we really see the leveling system. But still, I'm excited to see what comes down the road for that. All right, cool. This time for sure, signing off. Thank you so much for checking this out. And go ahead, leave your thoughts and comments. I like having a chance to, respond to questions. And I like it when you guys point out things I hadn't thought of. So thank you again so much for watching. And we'll see you next time.